The text arrived at 11:17 on a Tuesday night, while I was sitting in my carport in Clear Lake, elbows deep in the carburetor of a 1974 Ford pickup I'd been restoring for 3 years without much urgency. 2 words and a live location pin. 2 words I hadn't seen in over 20 years. Blue star. My hands stopped moving immediately. Not shaking, just still. The kind of stillness that happens when your body understands danger before your mind catches up to it. The Houston heat still clung to the air even that late at night. A sprinkler clicked somewhere across the street. My coffee had gone cold beside the toolbox an hour earlier. I stared at the message again. Blue star. My daughter Simone created that code with me after her mother died. Rhonda passed from a sudden stroke when Simone was only 13. One night after the funeral, she asked me something no child should ever have to ask. What if someday I'm really scared and I can't explain why? So we built a promise. Blue star meant don't ask questions, don't waste time, just come. And in 22 years, she had never used it. Not once, until that night. I called her immediately, straight to voicemail. Again, nothing. By the 3rd call, I was already backing out of the driveway. People think firefighters run on adrenaline. We don't. We run on patterns. After 31 years with Houston Fire Department, you learn when smoke means danger, long before you see flames. And every instinct I had was screaming the same thing. Get there now. I called Ray Delgado while heading toward Katy, retired Houston PD, calm in ways most people never become. She used the code, I told him. Silence. Then he said, I'll meet you at the subdivision. That was it. Rain hammered the freeway the entire drive. The kind of hard Gulf Coast rain that makes headlights smear across the pavement and turns traffic lanes into guesses. And during that drive, memories kept forcing themselves forward. Simone wearing long sleeves in warm weather. The way she apologized for things that weren't her fault. How my granddaughter Gracie always went quiet whenever Marcus raised his voice. Not scared in the obvious way. Conditioned. That was the word I should have admitted years earlier. Last Thanksgiving, Marcus corrected Simone over too much salt in the casserole, while 8 people sat at my table pretending not to notice. He smiled while humiliating her. Calm. Controlled. Her hands shook while clearing the dishes afterward. I saw it, and I told myself it wasn't my business. That lie still sits heavy on me. Ray was waiting near the subdivision entrance when I arrived. Neither of us spoke much as we drove deeper into the neighborhood, past rows of expensive-looking houses that somehow felt empty, even with lights glowing inside them. Then we heard shouting through the rain. Ray glanced at me carefully. You want me to call this in? I was already staring at Simone's house. Porch light on. Her car in the driveway. Gracie's little bike lying sideways near the garage. Then Marcus's voice exploded through the walls. You think your father can fix everything? Something inside me hardened instantly. Halfway up the lawn, something shattered inside the house. Then came Gracie crying. Not loud. Worse. Small, trapped, careful. The kind of crying children learn when they already know being heard can make things worse. If you've ever ignored a warning sign because facing it felt uncomfortable, subscribe to this channel. Some stories matter because they force us to admit what we almost missed. I opened the front door without knocking. The smell hit me first. Burnt food, whiskey. Something metallic underneath it all. Then the room finally came into focus. Simone stood beside the dining table, with one arm wrapped protectively around her ribs. Her lip was split badly enough that blood still glistened along her chin. Behind her, Gracie hid halfway behind her mother's legs, wearing little yellow pajamas with turtles printed across them. And Marcus stood near the kitchen island, holding a whiskey glass like none of this was unusual. The moment he saw me, his expression changed fast. Surprise. Calculation. Then performance. Gerald, he said quickly, lifting one hand, this isn't what it looks like. I spent 3 decades walking into emergencies. I learned one thing early. When somebody says that sentence first, it's almost always exactly what it looks like. Gracie saw me and broke immediately. Grandpa. She ran straight into my chest, shaking so hard I could feel it through my soaked shirt. That wasn't fear from one bad night. That was stored fear. Fear that had been living inside her for a long time. I handed her gently to Ray, who crouched beside her calmly. Hey, sweetheart, he said softly. You think you can help me find some juice in the kitchen? She nodded instantly and grabbed his hand like she already trusted him more than the room she was standing in. Marcus started talking fast after that. Couples argue. Everybody gets emotional. She threw a plate first. Simone flinched before he even finished the sentence. Tiny movement. But once you spend enough years reading Panic in smoke-filled buildings, you stop missing those details. Fear has posture, and my daughter wore it like muscle memory. I'm taking Simone and Gracie with me tonight, I said. Marcus laughed once. Short, ugly. You can't just walk into my house and... Simone moved toward the hallway. Marcus grabbed her arm hard enough to make her gasp. Everything inside me went cold after that. Not explosive. Certain. I walked directly toward him until we were almost chest to chest. Then I said quietly, "Take your hands off my daughter." He released her slowly, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. Then came the smirk. The one men use when they think humiliation still gives them control. "What are you going to do, old man? Call the fire department?" From the kitchen doorway, Ray answered before I could. Already called somebody. 12 minutes later, 2 Harris County deputies arrived without sirens. And that's when Marcus became truly dangerous. Not angry, controlled. He transformed into the exhausted husband, dealing with an overreaction. His tone softened. His posture relaxed. He even sighed at the right moments. I think her father escalated things emotionally tonight. That sentence made one deputy glance toward Simone carefully. Marcus knew exactly what he was doing. People like him survive by exhausting everyone else first. Simone sat at the kitchen table with frozen corn pressed against her cheek, while deputies asked questions carefully. "Did your husband strike you tonight?" Long silence. She looked toward Marcus automatically before answering. We both got upset. My chest tightened hearing that, because I recognized it instantly. Protection. Even after everything, she was still trying to protect him. By the time the deputies left, they could only recommend separation for the night, no arrest. Not without cooperation. Marcus followed Simone room to room while she packed bags for herself and Gracie. "You're blowing this out of proportion. You're confusing Gracie. You're really going to destroy this family over one argument?" Every sentence was designed carefully. Not loud enough to sound abusive, just sharp enough to keep her doubting herself. Then suddenly his voice softened completely. "Baby, come on." And for one terrible second, I saw hesitation cross Simone's face. That's the part people outside abusive relationships don't understand. The person hurting you doesn't stay cruel all the time. Sometimes they become the exact person you fell in love with again, just long enough to reset your hope. Then Gracie reached for her mother's hand in the hallway, and whatever spell Marcus almost rebuilt shattered instantly. We walked out together. The drive back to Clear Lake was silent, except for rain hitting the windshield. Gracie eventually fell asleep, curled under a blanket in the back seat. Ray followed us all the way home. Inside my kitchen, Simone stood staring at the coffee maker like she'd forgotten how normal life worked. I made coffee anyway. She wrapped both hands around the mug but never drank from it. Around 2 in the morning, Ray stepped outside with me onto the porch. "This didn't start tonight," he said quietly. I looked through the window at my daughter sitting alone under the kitchen light. "No," I admitted. "It started years ago. If you've ever watched somebody slowly disappear while convincing yourself they were fine, subscribe. Because sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we noticed early, and ignored anyway." At 4:15 in the morning, Simone finally looked at me and whispered something that nearly broke me completely. "Do you think less of me for staying?" That question stayed in the room long after she asked it. "Do you think less of me for staying?" I looked at my daughter sitting across from me in one of her old sweatshirts, exhausted beyond words, and realized how thoroughly Marcus had rewritten the way she saw herself. "I hate that you even think you need to ask me that," I told her. And that was the moment she finally broke. Not dramatic, not loud, just years of pressure quietly collapsing all at once. Over the next hour, pieces of the truth came out slowly. The insults, the financial control, the constant criticism, how he monitored her phone and drained Gracie's education account while secretly planning an exit for himself. Then came the sentence that nearly sent me through the wall. He hit me the first time when Gracie was 18 months old. I walked straight into the garage after that and hit my storage cabinet hard enough to dent the metal. Because the worst part wasn't only what Marcus had done. It was realizing how many signs I had explained away. The following weeks changed everything. An attorney helped Simone rebuild control over her life piece by piece. Accounts were uncovered, lies surfaced. Marcus's affair became public. His company quietly opened investigations into fraudulent expenses tied to hotel rooms and private trips. And eventually the man who controlled everything started losing it publicly. But the real victory wasn't watching Marcus fall apart. It was watching Simone slowly come back to life. Months later, I stood in my kitchen making blueberry pancakes while Gracie argued that dolphins were emotionally smarter than sharks. Simone laughed in the background. Real laughter. The kind fear can't fake. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes showing up for someone doesn't require perfect words. Sometimes it just means refusing to ignore what your heart already knows. And sometimes the people we save are the people we should have checked on sooner.